There aren't a 2-week sprints anymore. Now what you have is what we call the coffee break sprints. You use Claude Code or you use OpenClaw, you use a lot of the different tools that are out there, and you put together your prompt, is the best way of calling it, and you go make yourself a cup of coffee and you come back and it's done. If you're good at vibe coding, you can get a lot of things done in a short amount of time. The AI tools are revolutionizing the way new applications are getting done. And the speed of it is also creating some scenarios where I don't know how the marketplace will keep up with it.
Welcome to the NextGen Studio Podcast. I'm your host, Elena, AI consultant and architect of change. In every episode, I sit down with the founders, innovators, and leaders who are building the future, the ones who are solving the hardest problems and turning disruption into opportunity. If you want to stay ahead of the curve, this podcast is for you. Let's get into it. Today's guest has spent his career at the forefront of some of the most disruptive tech companies to come out of Silicon Valley, working with WebEx, BlueJeans, Mural, Dialpad, and more. Today, he's the co-founder and CEO of Invenir, a startup tackling one of the most overlooked bottlenecks in tech, the gap between how fast products are built and how slowly they actually reach the market. And he just came back from the world's largest cybersecurity event with fresh insights on what AI security really means for businesses. Jim Recker, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You spent over 2 decades inside some of the most iconic tech companies. What made you go and build a startup from scratch?
It's really simple. I saw a gap. I saw a spot that no one was trying to fill. And over the last 8 months, I still haven't seen anybody try to fill it. Specifically, I was standing at an event led by Eric Yuan, the founder and CEO of Zoom. And he was so excited because his company came out with 4,000 new features last year. And I said, well, wait a second. How does marketing, sales, and customer care keep up with that? And then after doing a little bit of research, just took me a day, I realized, oh, they're not. And as I started to look at the industry in general, I started to think about my experiences in working in all the companies in the Silicon Valley. Over the last 20 years, software development has accelerated at least 20-fold. The go-to-market teams haven't. They're still running at the same pace. So I came to the realization that there's a velocity challenge, and the velocity challenge was there in all the companies I worked with. You mentioned some of them. All of them had the same challenge. No matter how fast or how slow the development team went, the go-to-market teams were still running at the same pace. But in this age of AI, when everybody's vibe coding, everybody's using AI, and the development teams are pushing out materials faster and faster, I said to myself, I need to fix this gap, and I have the background and the facilities to do so.
Engineering seems to have solved that product velocity, but revenue velocity is still not working. Can you expand a bit more on that gap?
There is something that came out, a methodology that came out, I'm not actually sure exactly when, but at least 10 years ago, called CI/CD. There was a lot of other different models that development was using, like Agile. We probably heard the terms Sprint and Scrum and so forth. These were all methodologies that engineering teams and development teams would use to organize themselves to push through the code in a manner so that it got to the end, being able to be operated. And with CI/CD, what's essentially happened, CI/CD, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is continuous improvement, continuous developments. And it's a model that allows for continuous release, literally. And so where there used to be releases 20 years ago every quarter, now there's releases maybe every day. And seeing those mechanics, I said to myself, there's got to be a way to capture what the development is putting out and translate that into materials that the go-to-market teams can use. And that, in effect, is what my product is doing today. We actually have some design partners who are working with us right now who are faced with this problem. Specifically, these are companies that could not take advantage of how fast their development teams were working. And now working with my platform, Invenir, we're able to enable them to get the content out literally at the same velocity, taking something that was 6 to 8 weeks long down to a couple of days.
Can you dive deep a bit more on the moment when a team launches a product and in those first weeks, it happens very often that the opportunities is lost and the momentum is gone?
That's a great question. And the simple way to put it is that if the go-to-market strategy was not well built out, thought out, and looking carefully at the marketplace, it is very possible to lose momentum. It is very possible to not see the intended effect. In a good release, first of all, there has to be a good strategy. You have to ask yourself, why are we releasing? Who would care about the release? What does the customer care about the release? What impact will we have on our immediate customers, and what impact will we have in general on the marketplace that we're trying to impact? Strangely, I actually have found myself quite involved in that question lately, because one of the things that happens with AI is that it has a propensity to do generic responses. And unless you try to guide AI and try to guide your agents in a way to match the results you're expecting, you may go off in the wrong direction. And I'll give you an example. When somebody puts together a release, you first of all have to hopefully understand that the release is going to suit your customers. So there's customer input, obviously, beforehand. And sometimes it's just reacting to what customers desire down the road. If you try then to do something that doesn't match your customers' expectations, you will, of course, not see the results and not see the revenue you're expecting. And so there's a delicate balance on your customers, on the markets, and the market in general, and what you're trying to do in the long term. And all that strategy is key to make sure that you don't, to answer your questions, lose momentum. Losing momentum also can occur when you miss the opportunity. In other words, you're too slow to react to the market need or too fast. And I've seen that happen as well, where you're ahead of the marketplace, you're ahead of the need. And so you'll release something thinking that the marketplace will embrace it, but they're not quite ready for it. The perfect example is what I'm encountering with my company. My company is trying to design a new category. You've heard of DevOps before, and then there's something called RevOps, which is the revenue recognition after you sell. I'm trying to do the middle, which I'm calling DevOps. I'm calling Launch Ops, rather. So there's DevOps, Launch Ops, and RevOps. And that middle area is doesn't have standards, I guess is the best way of putting it. And Launch Ops, more specifically, while it will accelerate the whole go-to-market process, also has to keep in mind that what happens when you change the way people do things. I could spend an hour talking about this because there's a lot of people right now thinking more about the future of technology, how AI changes the way we work. If you recall, a couple of minutes ago, I said I'm going to take a 8-week process and put it down to a couple of hours. So how does that impact the people in the go-to-market teams? What are they going to be doing now? Are they still needed? Up the street from me is Oracle. They've just laid off several thousand of their employees, anticipating that they won't be needed anymore because of AI. So all of these new AI tools will have dramatic impact on how people work, and more importantly, on the flow of work. The flow of work that I'm going to be impacting will definitely impact livelihoods and how people do work, but it may give them other opportunities that haven't been thought through, such as we were talking a little bit earlier about strategy. Maybe now that means they have much more time to focus on strategy and uncover new market opportunities that they couldn't have done while preparing their materials. And so just like when the steam engine came out several hundred years ago and put out of business a whole bunch of people that had horse carriages, all those people eventually found new jobs. And that, I'm convinced, is what's going to happen in this age of AI. We will all find new ways of finding our place in this technology industry.
Yes, absolutely. So there are so many opportunities opening right now due to AI. If you look at a typical go-to-market team today, what are the biggest time and money drains that AI can eliminate?
So I was having this conversation last night. AI can facilitate, but it also can allow exploration of new avenues and new marketplaces that haven't been thought of before. It also enables more detail, more focus, and looking at what I will call verticals that may not have been explored in the past. The decision-making processes are facilitated by AI. And if you're using AI for your decision-making processes, it can help you, guide you on new ideas, new ways that you want to do things.
Which jobs are already starting being replaced by the AI?
Well, I could cite the example of what's going on in Oracle up the street. AI is stopping already hiring in high tech. And it's quite visible in certain areas where it was very labor intensive, such as copywriting, script writing. I'll say in general, marketing, the area of marketing is quite compromised because AI can do things just as fast, if not faster, and arguably do it better. And I say arguably because AI still makes a lot of mistakes and AI doesn't certainly solve a lot of problems. I was talking to a CTO last night of a small startup, and he was talking about one of the products that are out there that does PowerPoint slides. And his PowerPoint deck was done in minutes, where it used to take him several hours to get the job done. At that point, you have to say, well, was he going to go out and hire an expert in creating PowerPoint decks? No, he doesn't need to anymore because AI has done that for him. Tech in general, there will be a lot of changes coming in all areas, but the biggest change that is very visible already is the development teams. And I used to see in the Silicon Valley 10 years ago, a lot of young people coming here to the Silicon Valley to code. And they would go to a lot of hackathons to show their skill sets, and at hackathons develop their dreams with the help of people who would help finance some of those hackathons. Hackathons are still occurring right now, but nobody's coding anymore because you don't need to code anymore. You can use Claude Code. You can use OpenClaw. OpenClaw, in by itself, is revolutionizing the way people are developing here. And so I've been talking to a number of people recently here in the Silicon Valley and talking about the definition of coding, because there are no coders here anymore. There are really AI guides. And so is AI replacing their jobs? No, but those coders who do not understand that they need to move with the times and become experts with AI tools will lose their jobs. It's really weird. Somebody spends a long time learning how to code in Python, and now that's obsolete. So what do you now do? Do you relearn everything from scratch, or just spend your time with AI? That's, in my mind, is the only way you're going to survive here in the Silicon Valley if you are in that space. So I've talked about marketing, I've talked about coding, and I can go down the line of all the different roles. Those roles that won't change, however, are those that have interpersonal relationships. So partnerships, for instance. So I was visiting GitHub last week at RSA at the conference, and that's a human-to-human connection. And I'm going to be talking with them again this Friday. Can I do that with AI? No. Interpersonal relationships will continue to be terribly important in all businesses. So AI, for the time being, is not going to replace that.
Very interesting. The additional question for coding with AI right now, because I think this is a very, very big trend. And what is your opinion on the security concerns? Right now, there are a lot of people who have never written a single line of code and they start creating apps. Is this really possible, or still you need to have that basic knowledge to create a code and then to learn making it faster with AI? And what is your opinion on that?
All right, we'll start off with speed. In talking with a CTO last week, we were laughing on how the 2-week sprint has disappeared. There are no 2-week sprints anymore. Now what you have is what we call the coffee break sprints. You use Claude Code or you use OpenClaw, you use a lot of the different tools that are out there, and you put together your prompt, is the best way of calling it, and you go make yourself a cup of coffee and you come back and it's done. And so if you are very good at coding, not coding, that's the wrong word again. If you're good at vibe coding, that's the better word, a solution, you can get a lot of things done in a short amount of time. Trying to figure out another way to best say the question here. The AI tools are revolutionizing the way new applications are getting done. And the speed of it is also creating some scenarios where I don't know how the marketplace will keep up with it. But nevertheless, it still is. The danger, however, in this vibe coding is that there is no good oversight. There is no good security measures in place right now. And a lot of these tools can be used for deepfake. And so there's a lot of scams that can occur, a lot of, well, I'll call dangerous, dangerous situations that can occur with these tools. RSA was actually rather fascinating because of the focus on lack of security models for AI, which, by the way, is one of the biggest concerns that large enterprises have right now. How to best use AI safely with good governance and making sure that you are compliant with what I'll call legal regulations and such is still probably a couple of years away, even though we have AI to create new models for us. And OpenClaw, by the way, I should mention, is full of security holes. OpenClaw actually is, I won't call it dangerous. I would say because of the lack of guardrails can be surprisingly, yes, it could be bad for security. I'll just leave it at that. It's great to, by the way, explore OpenClaw. I'm not saying don't explore OpenClaw, but OpenClaw opens up new ways of creating scenarios where you impersonate people, scenarios, code, whatever have you. And without the lack of guardrails around OpenClaw, there's probably going to be a lot of nefarious actors using OpenClaw for many years to come. And all the copies of the claws are also equally full of security challenges. RSA, most of the people there, all the cybersecurity people are a little bit, I'll use the word horrified by what AI is enabling people to do these days. And it's moving so fast that I don't think anybody's had a chance to kind of grab the issue and figure out how to solve it. But it's number one on my list. And I'm always trying to figure out how do I stay compliant, make sure companies using my tools have good governance on what they're doing. And more importantly, making sure that I don't harm the customers I'm working for. And I think that's going to be something that's going to be the focus for the next several years to come.
So security is definitely one of the biggest challenges right now. Going back to my questions for the jobs replaced by AI, and we also touched on new jobs appearing, like maybe vibe coding or compliance security connected to AI. If you were advising a 20-year-old starting their career today, what skills would you tell them to build that AI cannot replace?
Well, first of all, I've met a lot of people leaving school these days who still don't even play with AI. That's mistake number one. AI should be part of your life, for sure. Even if you're not in high tech, you should be conversant with AI and know how AI can be used and make best use of it for your life. If you are in the high tech space, there certainly are a lot of jobs that are going to be available for cybersecurity, that's for sure. There are things that weren't even possible several years ago that make it actually AI quite exciting in terms of where things will go. There are disconcerting things that worry me, such as deepfake. I would be looking at, it's becomes nearly impossible to figure out if what you're looking at is real or not anymore. And so the impact of deepfake on just human communication is of tremendous concern. Whether you think about how you can fool people, how governments can use it for propaganda, how people can get your life savings because you look like somebody who you aren't. Those are all areas that offer great opportunities for somebody who's 20 years old. And so there will be new roles for sure with AI that don't exist today. And so all I can say is that make sure that AI is part of your daily life. Make sure that you use it frequently and often. That's the same word. And also make sure you use different kinds of AI because different LLMs offer different subtle outputs. So as an example, if I don't like the answer that I'm getting with ChatGPT, for instance, I'll go to Gemini. If I need to do some code, I actually prefer Claude. So I'll use Claude. But if I don't like the answer I'm seeing with Claude or the results with I'll try another one. So each LLM actually has a different, I'll call it personality. And if you use it often enough, you begin to sense and see what kind of results different LLMs have to offer. And then, of course, there will be a whole bunch of different opportunities because we haven't even talked about that, in AI for robotics, AI for medicine. There will be healthcare medicine. The whole health industry is being revolutionized by AI. The ability to look at different proteins and look at and be able to analyze medical studies much more rapidly than before will push out new medical solutions faster than ever before. We saw some signs of that in the early days of COVID that leveraged some of the new AI possibilities to get remedies much more rapidly than ever before. So while AI will end the jobs in certain areas, it will offer new opportunities in others. And that's what someone who's 20 years old needs to pay attention to and keep their eyes open for.
You just came back from RSAC, the world's biggest security conference. What's the one thing you heard there that every business leader should know right now?
Make sure you have a policy around security. Make sure that you understand what the potential threats are now out there today. Make sure that there are AI policies in your organizations so your company will not be compromised by misuse. And I would say every other booth, everyone would keep on mentioning about deepfakes. Deepfakes has a lot of people worried because it's getting so good that you cannot spot very easily something that's bad. Specifically, in the past, you used to be able to set up firewalls, for instance, to discern what traffic you wanted or didn't want. But with AI, deepfake has gotten so clever that's not an easy way to discern when there's something evil out there. And so the biggest challenges seen, and I heard it at RSAC, was that AI is enabling bad actors to move faster and faster. And so how do we keep up with them? So am I scared? No, I'm aware. And in fact, that's probably the best conclusion I got from RSAC is be aware and keep your eyes open.
Awareness is always the first step.
Yes.
When it comes to AI adoption, enterprises are the challenge. In your opinion, is the blocker security, compliance, culture, or something else?
The problem with AI in many enterprises is trying to understand how best to use it and to get the best results. And more complicated is access to information in enterprises. When Copilot came out with Microsoft a couple of years ago, the first thing that became quite evident was how do we use the data that we have internally and make best use of it. So if I'm a chemical company, or I'll use a chemical company as a good example, we have data that is kept secure within our own enterprise, and how do we make use of that without the risk that it gets used to the outside? And so all of these generative AI solutions have been challenged for the last couple of years in figuring out how best to utilize an enterprise IP in a way that is not shared with the outside. And conversely, how do we train our employees to use our AI safely so it doesn't compromise our IP? We're getting better and better at doing that, but there's still a lot of challenges that enterprise has in the adoption of AI. And by the way, that's a good career path as well. There are some new roles to be played in enterprise. And the one that I see the most exciting right now, and if I was 20 years old, I'd probably want to go do that, is to become an AI engineer. The AI engineer not only helps guide a company, large or small, doesn't matter the size of the company, in best uses of AI, but also ensures that the company doesn't compromise their IP. I continue to believe that we will see more roles that are focused on best use of AI. And more importantly, AI engineers will help companies better understand how they make the transition from where they are now to becoming what I'll call a big AI user, and being, more importantly, AI compliant.
If young people want to prepare for this role, AI engineer, which are the best ways to do that right now?
Good question. First, use AI every day. And not just one, many of them. Understands the limitations, understands the opportunities as quickly as possible. Make AI as part of your daily life. In other words, don't use it for special times. Don't use it for entertainment necessarily. Use it as part of your life and grow with it, is the best way of putting it. I use AI almost every hour of the day. And why? Because I am always curious to have somebody give me a second opinion. In fact, that's how I'm best using AI these days. I'm using it as a second opinion. But be careful. AI also still, even though it doesn't very much do this anymore, AI doesn't really so much hallucinate as it does mistakes. AI doesn't listen well. And I'm seeing it get better and better, but AI sometimes overlooks things that are important to you. But it's always good to get some feedback. Jeremy Utley is a professor at Stanford University, and around a year ago, he was telling a group of people, I was at a conference at Stanford, and he was saying, if you don't use AI to check your work, you haven't finished the job. And I agree with him on that. AI is at a point now that it needs to be part of your daily life. Maybe not personal life, but it's certainly in terms of your work life. And I'll mention real quickly personal life. Be careful using AI for your personal life. Don't use it to try to overcome your loneliness. Don't use it to try to, as a therapist. Don't use it as a counselor. Use humans. You'll get more accurate responses. I've seen a lot of young people using AI and getting bad directions, bad instructions. And then last but not least, be aware that AI can go completely crazy and suggest bad things. There's been several studies lately. There was one at Anthropic, where Anthropic had AI run a beverage beverage machine, and in the end, it lost money. And in the end, the Anthropic AI was trying to figure out how to kill the people who had set up the program in the first place. AIs can go off the rails. So that's what I'm saying. If you use it for personal gain, be careful on how you use it. It can be very helpful, but it also is, there's still a lot to be learned. And I always tell people, don't trust AI, but use it as a secondary way to get information.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think about AI education? Is it the best way to just start practicing and using AI and exporting its capabilities, or is maybe better first to build some foundation and knowledge layer and then to go more into execution?
If you're going to go into a career where you're using AI, we were talking about AI engineering, you will want to know the fundamentals of AI and what LLMs are all about. You'll want to know about the different types of AI. For instance, am using AI agents, which, by the way, I believe is a more lucrative direction than relying on generative AI. A lot of people are very bad at prompting, but programs can be design's a better word, to create great time savings and come up with great results. I'm sorry, when it kind of went off your question. AI in education, which is what I thought you were going to talk about first, is also an interesting topic. How much should AI be used in the school, which is a big question that occurs a lot in many countries around the world. And I think that the ideal model for AI in school I don't think has been completely figured out. It can tremendously benefit, but at the same time is creating new scenarios where students don't necessarily get the same skill sets. So for instance, if you had a geometric formula that you were taught in school, do you still need to know how to find the surface of a square or any of the traditional, what I'll call mathematical formulas? Do you need to remember that anymore since AI is going to be there for you? I'd say that knowing fundamentals in education is still terribly important. And without it, you will lose the abilities to be conversant in just a general conversation. Always continuously relying on AI, I don't think we really know that the impact's going to be. From personal experience, I can tell you that I've used AI in education and sometimes it's worked. But I've also had a failure in the sense that I was learning Spanish and I relied way too much on my AI, and I can still understand Spanish, but I can't speak it very well. Pray because I was relying too much on AI. Not sure that answers your question, but like I said, it's going to be AI in education is going to be something that is going to be evolving over the next many years. And I don't think anybody knows the complete answer yet.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important topic. When I was a student, I was writing all the essays by myself, like and doing something math, calculating by myself. And now when for students, it's so easy just to open ChatGPT or some other tool and immediately to get the answer. But does this mean for the brain and for the intelligence of people at all? Like that.
But let me add something here because I was in a fascinating conversation. I think I was at Meta the other night, and somebody was talking about truth and what is truth. So behind me, I have a bookcase that has some books, and the book is not going to change. It can sit there for 100 years, and whatever's in that book is what's in that book. But what's going to happen with new generations of LLMs coming out is that while today, those LLMs are relying on input that came in from humans. Future versions of LLM will have more and more AI information. And so the question is, and I'll use Wikipedia as an example. Wikipedia currently, well, just barely, relied on human contribution. Now Wikipedia is relying on AI contribution. Who is overseeing AI to make sure that the information they're putting into Wikipedia is correct? Going to the topic of deepfakes we just talked about earlier, what is to stop somebody from putting in updated information that comes from AI? And what AI thinks is real may not be real. Eventually, what could potentially happen with future generations of LLMs is that they'll be trained by AI data, which may not be true, but the humans aren't there to double check to make sure of that. So in the long term, what will humans be relying on? Inaccurate information or information that's made up by AI? That's possible. And so the question is will there be anybody keeping the books around that actually is the source of truth?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because now on one side, it can happen that AI can hallucinate. On the other side, there's maybe inaccurate information that AI is using. And when with the time, the amount of information that is given to AI from humans decreases, it comes the question, okay, what happens next?
And then more importantly, there are some societies, I'll be polite here, that believe that their views are truth. So I'll use the extreme example of North Korea. The government there wants their inhabitants to see the world in the way that the great leader sees the world. And so if by extreme, what that can mean is that some societies not only will be influenced by the political beliefs of that society, but also be influenced by AI. It'll become much easier, in fact, to put in new versions of truth using AI because it's very easy to program it into and train an LLM that way. And so the question then becomes who controls all this? Who should be controlling all this? We're kind of going way off on a tangent here from our original discussion, but what is truth and how does it impact people who are using AI?
Yes, absolutely. Using and creating AI in an ethical way.
Correct.
Another side of AI is that it's moving very rapidly, and how people should sell AI when it's changing so fast, especially to big companies and enterprises, when a decision-making cycle can take 12 to 18 months. What is your opinion on that?
Enterprises are very challenged right now because, as you said, their pace is much out of step with the velocity of AI. And companies recognize that and understand that. The pace of large enterprises, and I've been in a number of large enterprises, was mostly dictated by the pace and abilities of humans, meetings being primarily the biggest barriers to get anything done. My expectation is there'll be less and less meetings because not only AI, but new communication methods will enable decisions to happen faster. Certainly 20 years ago, there wasn't Slack, there wasn't, all these other tools that allow for quick communications, let alone people walking around with phones and able to instant message and help influence decisions in a much rapid pace. I think I'm seeing already AI speed things up, but in larger enterprises, they're moving quite carefully, deliberately carefully, so as not to, again, impact their decision-making processes. However, as older generations retire and are taken over by younger generations who feel quite comfortable with technology, I'm expecting to see enterprises which move much more rapidly. The question is that will the decisions-making processes that they have be impacted? They certainly will be. Some AI tools are quite fascinating in their ability to bring together thoughts. So for instance, I use Claude a lot and I use it with my team. A Claude account can capture a lot of different discussions, a lot of different back and forth, and enable and has impact actually on the decision making of a group of people. Will we see that on an enterprise level? We've not seen it yet, but I can know that some of the more recent large enterprises are using AI more and more to do group decisions. And have they suffered from it? No. Are they making bad decisions? No, not really. A lot of large enterprises actually here in the Silicon Valley is run by a very strong individual. I won't mention any names, but people who run. We were just talking about Oracle, for instance, talking about Meta. Those leaders, are they using AI? Oh yes, but we don't know how much AI is having an impact on them. And I'll mention one name, Elon Musk. How much does Elon use in his daily life? Is he using AI every day? Is he a big fan of Grok? I know he is, but is that impacting his decision making? I'm not sure, because he's always been somebody who's made decisions very rapidly. It's probably helping him. It's probably helping the people around him keep up with him because he thinks very rapidly. So I think that traditional enterprises like petroleum, manufacturing's already changed. What other ones? Banking is not going to change right away. Banking is very worried about AI. Banking and fintech, fintech's gone off in a direction, but traditional banking is not going to change for a while to come because they're so terrified about how AI can impact decisions within banking. And then you also have financiers, stock market and things like that. Are people using AI? Of course they are. Are decisions happening faster? Maybe. And then we can go to the extreme and talk about military. Is military being impacted by AI? Absolutely. Has it had great results? Not necessarily. And not trying to get too political, but some of the things that are happening in the war in the Middle East are certainly being impacted by the use of AI. And then in an extreme, things that have happened in Ukraine, for instance, taking advantage of AI is just, to me, phenomenal. I was watching a report the other night that the Ukrainian drone industry comes up with a new version of drones every week. And the only way they're doing that is with AI. So yes, AI is impacting all areas of our lives. And the only place that I can see you can get away from it is being on a beach that doesn't have internet connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And there will be probably more decision makers in the future as AI is delivering a big part of the decision ready insights. And decision making is a very human skill. So it still needs to be made by people, and a big part of the operational and repetitive work can be automated with AI. And this leads to the conclusion that actually what will be needed in the future is like faster decision making and that type of critical thinking,
Critical
deciding how.
thinking.
Yes,
Yes.
critical thinking. And just also not trusting AI at 100% and always questioning. Well, there are three industries right now that are developing at a very large extent through AI: healthcare, green tech, and logistics. If you had to bet on one, which of these industries would look completely unrecognizable in 5 years?
Healthcare for sure. I think all three of them. I'm sorry. So you said there was healthcare. The two other ones
Green
were
tech and logistics.
logistics is already dramatically changing now. And I've seen a whole bunch of AI companies that have had huge impact on logistics. Green tech, I know someone who owns a farm, and the way he farms is unrecognizable to me. He has little robots that are solar powered going around, which is astonishing to me. Farming in general is going to have to evolve in new ways just because of the climate changes that's going on. And so they won't be able to ignore the abilities that AI was going to be offering. So to answer your question, all three will see huge changes. Health tech usually in the past would move much more slowly. Um, and whether it be genetics, with proteins, there's huge attention being paid right now on making people live longer. Will cancer be cured in our lifetime? Maybe so. In fact, the only thing I was joking with somebody the other day about this, the only thing that I can predict probably won't be cured by AI is the common cold, but we'll figure out everything else. So unrecognizable, all five of them. In fact, because of the pace of AI, I don't even want to be able to, I can't think about what's going to happen 5 years from now. I remember when this came out and we couldn't imagine how that would had changed society. 3 years from now, we could probably come up with some good guesses, but 5 years from now, no, I don't think we can.
It's very exciting. And we are slowly coming to the last question. If you weren't building Veneer, your startup right now, what problem in AI would you go solve next?
What problem would I solve next? I would probably want to do something that makes society a better place. There are a number of things that AI has not gone out to help. Hunger, homelessness, although there are some new fabrication models out there that were generated by AI to create housing opportunities. There's inequality. I can't solve that, but can I make this a more gentle society? I would probably want to do that. I don't think that our world will dramatically change in the next 10, 15 years, but I do think AI will evolve the way people behave and think. And I hope to have some input into that and help influence how people behave and care about one another. It's interesting when you are someone who's launching a company, an entrepreneur, it's a really lonely business. And probably I would want to figure out ways to make it a less lonely place for people who are trying out something new and trying to accomplish their dreams.
That would be a great mission, like community for entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship is lonely and intensive. And what's the one belief that's keeping most business leaders stuck while their competitors move forward with AI?
That is where I generally see obstacles. AI is a new tool, and not everybody is quite certain how it impacts their businesses, their decision making, and more importantly, how AI impacts the people who work around them and their employees. I think that's something we don't know the answer to quite yet, and we'll probably figure it out in a very short time to come.
Yeah. This is also something entrepreneurship is about figuring out when things trot away and with AI it's very similar, especially when things are moving so fast.
Correct.
Jim, thank you very much for your time and being on the podcast. The episode
My
was
pleasure.
very insightful for the audience. Thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.